Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another amazing Smart Crowd webinar. As you can see, we're in our new smart studio at Smart Talk. Today, we'll be discussing how to maximize your rental income. And specifically, we're going to be talking about short-term versus long-term rentals, how to get the most out of your asset, how to sweat that asset to give you the highest income. I'm joined today by Jimmy Moussa, MD of HAVN Holiday Homes. Jimmy, you want to just introduce yourself and HAVN Holiday Homes for the audience that are not familiar?
Yeah, so thank you, Riz, for the introduction. It's great to be here. So as you said, although HAVN is relatively a new venture in the market, however, the team and we come with more than 30 years of combined experience. And having spent the last 10 years in Dubai, working within the hospitality field, and more specifically in luxury hotels and business hotels, it's very exciting for us to work now on the other side of the industry, bringing all the wealth of experience from one side to the other. And as we were talking earlier, when we were building HAVN, one of the main pillars was integrity. And I think for some of our current investors and landlords now, they see that because of our statements. They're too detailed, which brings up more questions, but we're fine with that, and we're gonna keep it this way.
So just for the audience at home, SmartCrowd has been doing holiday homes for the last 4 years. And when we have holiday homes, we've been using different companies. Last year, we had up to 5 different companies. And what we noticed with each is sometimes they lose focus, sometimes there's lack of transparency. We ask questions sometimes, we don't get answers in time, etc. And we've decided to partner with HAVN, who we've handed all of our holiday homes over to earlier this year. And we've seen the results. We've seen the transparency. We've seen the quality, again, as Jimmy mentioned, bringing in that kind of hospitality feel. So we, again, on behalf of our investors, we always look at what ratings holiday homes are getting. So we generally are roughly about 4.9 stars. Before, we were getting sometimes 2 and 3 stars if there'd been an issue. And we've seen the income coming up to our investors. Even now, when it's summer, when it's a low period, we're seeing good results, steady results. So thanks again to Jimmy. And that's why we thought, who better to invite today than HAVN's MD. I think let's talk quickly just about the agenda. We're going to have about 20 minutes of me and Jimmy having a bit of conversation around the holiday homes, helping share some information with you. We got some questions ahead of the webinar. We'll be answering those. We're looking at the outlook, etc. And then we'll spend up to 40 minutes talking about going through Q&A. So you ask questions, we'll give you answers, we'll discuss it. We've got Lara here. She's out of screenshot, but she'll be going through all your questions, gathering them together, letting us know, and we'll hopefully get through as much as possible. If there's more demand, we're happy to kind of carry this on in another session in a month's time or so. But I just want to start off with talking about Dubai. So a lot of people that joined the webinar, a lot of Smart Crowd investors, 50% are in the UAE, 50% are outside the UAE. Right. Some of this audience is going to be outside of the UAE. So let's talk a little bit about Dubai, why Dubai is unique, okay? So if I just go first, for me, Dubai is very unique. It's 10%, and even the UAE, 10% local population. So these are Emirati local population. 90% are expats. And expats aren't from 1 or 2 places. They're from over 150 different countries. So you've got a whole actual melting pot. No place in the world is like this. At the same time, you've got a lot of people putting money into Dubai. Why are they investing in Dubai? It's becoming a mature economy. You saw that through COVID, how it rebounded so quickly, huge growth. It's a very friendly environment because there's so many different cultures. The dirham, the UAE dirham is pegged to the dollar, and therefore putting money in dirhams is really safe. It's basically you're not taking any currency risk against the dollar. And on top of that, there's no tax, right? There's no income tax, there's no capital gains tax. So people like to invest. So we saw a lot of money over the past few decades coming into Dubai, helping fund developments. So in the UK, where I'm from, you see, in Manchester or London or where have you, some developments. Dubai, you see, I think at one point, a third of the world's cranes were in Dubai. Yeah. Even now, every month, you're seeing a new launch. Yeah. Thousands of villas coming on, thousands of apartments coming on. So it's very exciting, right? And for a lot of investors, smart crowd investors, or getting their own properties, and thinking, okay, what's this holiday home thing about, right? Yeah. Because again, there's holiday homes in different countries, but Dubai seems to have a lot of hotels, and a lot of holiday homes. From my perspective, that's because you have the international tourism, right? You have not just the international tourism, you have GCC tourism, so Saudis, etc., getting away from the weekend. You also have in-country tourism. So people from Abu Dhabi, even Dubai. I mean, sure, you have, I have. You go for a staycation, we call it, right? You go for the weekend, you stay in a hotel in Dubai, and then you just go back home, right? It might be 10 minutes away from your house. So this drives all the holiday homes and as well as the hotel occupancies. But why don't you give us a bit of your flavor? I've just talked about why I think Dubai is unique, why I think holiday homes are important. Why don't you give us your view?
So, for me, I'm gonna be more specifically talking about the tourism, right, in Dubai, and I think that the city, having been here for 10 years now, and the city keeps surprising you, right, with lots of commitment, lots of innovation when it comes to tourism sector in specific. So, if you look at the first 5 months of the year, from January to May 2024, compared to last year, same period, the city has seen more than 10% increase in number of inbound tourism.
Okay.
So
the international tourists.
International tourists.
Okay.
And that's about 700,000 dirhams tourists on top of last year.
700,000 new tourists.
New tourists,
Okay.
right? So to put that in number, Dubai has seen 8.1 million visitors in the first 5 months of the year, right?
Okay.
And that's an increase compared to 7.4 compared to last year. So there is demand, right? And that's a positive sign. And everything seems to, it looks like 2024 is going to surpass 2023, right? As of now. And although there's an increase in supply, right, which is a second topic I would like to go into. So you've been talking about the real estate market in Dubai. There are lots of, apartments, lots of projects happening every single day, new launches, but that's being backed up by the number of demand, by the increase of number of demand that's coming to Dubai, and specifically tourists. I'm not even talking about new expats in the city, right? So I think there is lots of positivity as we see now for the next 18 months, and it's very exciting for me as well. I'm really excited. And the last point, with regulations, Dubai has made it quite easy, or easier compared to other cities, to operate a holiday homes, right? If you look at, let's say, at Amsterdam or London or any other destination in the world, sometimes it's quite difficult or more difficult than Dubai. Whereas here, if you're compliant and if you have a DTCM permit, which is the Department of Tourism permit, which you can apply for online, you can easily operate, and you're legally allowed to operate.
Excellent. I should mention, actually, at some point during the webinar, both HAVN and SmartCrowd are going to drop some goodies, some bonuses for you guys, so stick around. Stick with us through the Q&A as well. So we've talked a bit about the stats, about the holiday home market. Can we get a bit more specific? Let's talk about specific areas.
I think, look, we've picked up 3 areas, and the reason why I've picked them up, they're based on a couple of, KPIs that I would like to share. But let me just put it this way, because many people will be maybe wondering now, what about Dubai Marina? Is not on the list. What about Palm Jumeirah? Dubai in general is good city for holiday homes, let me put it this way. But these areas have seen increase compared to last year and the previous couple of years. I think I'm going to be focusing more on Business Bay and Jumeirah Village Circle. Downtown speaks for itself, right?
So downtown, for those people that don't know, that's where the Burj Khalifa is. Everyone knows that.
Exactly.
Where's Business Bay? Where's JVC? So I don't know.
Okay, so Business Bay is less than 5 minutes away from downtown. Connected to downtown. It's more of a business hub, right? But what's unique about Business Bay and Jumeirah Village Circle is they're connected by one stretch, right? So it's Al Khail Road. So and JVC is more towards the southern part of Business Bay, right? And unique part here is basically the infrastructure around these both areas is being developed as we speak. And there are lots of bridges. If you drive down now from Business Bay to Jumeirah Village Circle, you see more than 3 to 4 projects around infrastructure, new bridges coming up, new tunnels. So that's gonna positively impact these areas. And the second point is amenities, especially, again, you go to Jumeirah Village Circle. I don't think actually I've seen a building without a grocery, at least. Right? Every single building has a grocery, pharmacy, and restaurants. There's a mall now in JVC, but the proximity is very unique. So you're 15 minutes away from major cities like Expo 2020, Jebel Ali, and with the new Hessa Street expansion, it'll take you 15 minutes to Al Barsha, Greens, City. So both areas are being developed, and around the areas are being developed now, which I believe they're great areas for holiday homes. But let's just keep in mind, not every tower in Business Bay is great for holiday homes, and not every unit in JVC is great for holiday homes.
I think that's a really important point, right? Because again, there are building regulations in Dubai. They are strict. But again, in Dubai, you generally have a whole area might be developed by one developer. So, as an example, Emaar or the Mac, etc. In some areas, you have different buildings like JVC. Each building might be built by a different developer.
Right.
And the qualities vary, right? So one bedroom in JVC is not the same as the next one in the next building. You've got to look at the quality. So this is stuff that we do every day. We look at over 30 properties before we finalize one for SmartCrowd, right? But you got to make sure that it's not just the one bedroom in JVC, it's which tower, which level, what are the amenities like, what's the maintenance like, if there's flooding, what's going to happen, as we saw recently in the market. So these are the kind of top areas for you to look out for. Dubai. I want to talk about downtown a little bit later as well, because there's quite a few things happening there, right? It's actually, why don't we just jump on it now? So what we've seen is long-term rentals have been increasing quite a lot in downtown, okay? And holiday homes are becoming a bit less profitable in downtown compared to long-term rentals. Right, we'll discuss the pros and cons of both. Well, what's your view on that?
I think it's all about how you manage the property, right? So I'll give you an example. One of the properties, one of your properties actually, in 8 Boulevard in downtown. So yes, you're right. We've seen that, especially with the increase and the rise of long-term rent now at the moment. See, Dubai keeps increasing as well in terms of long-term rent. So what we did, we created a long-term promotion on Airbnb and Booking.com and some platforms, which made us get a long-term booking, a 6-month booking through these platforms. It's secure. If there are damages, you can easily claim that back. So it's a very secure way to get bookings, right? So this is a very unique example of how you can combine short-term and long-term. Because at the end of the day, if you want to sell the property, let's say, you don't need to wait 12 months to give a notice, unlike long-term. And it's still on short term. So you can easily break the contract within 2 months. So what we've been trying to do is actually combine both short term and long term in some buildings. Wherever we see there's a need to do so.
Sure. Okay. So no, that's definitely one of the reasons, again, we've exited 26 properties, right? Sometimes they are with the holiday home company. So we need to stop it in a period of time and sell it. And generally you get more for a vacant unit, right? So that's important. So good to know that you're managing that.
And sorry, Riz, I think you've seen also an example of a unit where you were proposing us to list on short term, but we pushed back and said put it on long term. And I think dealing with us, many landlords get surprised because we push back sometimes and say, let's not list on short term, let's keep it on long term, because we want to make sure it's whatever is more beneficial for an investor.
This is something that happened to us in the past, where we go to a holiday home company. What do you think you can earn from this unit? And they throw out a number, and then we list the unit and it would get lower, and then we ended up having to take it off holiday homes and put it on long-term rental. So we've not found that with HAVN. We found generally when you give us a number, you exceed that number. So no, definitely that's again why we've gone exclusive with you. Let me just talk a bit about you're the short-term expert. Let me just talk a bit about long-term, right? So we've got a slide on here. This is just roughly what we did is we took the SmartCrowd team, we looked at Property Finder, we saw how many are listed as short-term and how many are listed as long-term, right? So you have about 85% as long-term. The market is dominated by long-term. Then you have a certain part of the market that's short-term, and short-term is then competing with hotels, really, right? SmartCrowd, we generally have about 2/3 of our properties as long-term, 1/3 as holiday homes. Again, we're trying to get the maximum value. So sometimes we'll specifically look for a holiday home to give us a certain yield to give back to our investors, right? And why do we make that decision? I mean, we look at a unit. We just funded a unit just over 3 million dirhams last week, right? Transferred it, handed it over to you guys. That one, you guys gave us a guaranteed yield of 7.5%, right? You said, I'm so confident I'm giving 7.5%. Long-term on that one was less than 5.5%, right? So this is where you've got to be looking at each unit, get the honest inputs. What can you get long-term? What can you get short-term? But I think there's a lot of pros and cons, right, of these short and long terms. So I think that's what we're going to go discuss next. What I'm going to propose, instead of us just listing off pros and cons and debating it, let's just make this really short. Let's make it like, let's say 3 minutes. Okay. Let's say 4 minutes. Okay. I'm going to propose, I will talk about in favor of long term. You talk in favor of short term. I'll give you the pros of long term. You give me the pros of short term. I'll give you the cons of short term. And then you give me the cons of long term. And then we'll see. We'll do a little battle. We'll see where we end up. Okay. So I've made a few notes here and I'll add to it. But in my head, and it's pretty simple, right? If I put something on long term, I put it on there. I don't have to worry about it. I might get the check up front. I'll get a security deposit. I'll get check maybe 6 months up front. some maximum quarterly, maybe monthly. So I know how much I'm going to get every single month. Doesn't matter if it's summer or it's winter, I'm getting that amount. So I've got that locked in. I generally have lower turnover costs. If someone's in my unit, they'll probably renew for another year, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay. And the last one is less management. Like I'm not getting a call all the time from my tenant saying, "Hey, I'm checking out now. I'm checking in. Can I get an early check-in, late check-in?" I have a tenant. I give them the unit. They might call me once a month with, my washing machine's broken and a maintenance guy goes out there, right? So that's what I see as the benefits of long term. What do you think of the benefits of short term?
Look, the number one in my mind is obviously the higher income potential.
Okay.
I'll emphasize on the word potential, right?
Okay.
Because it's not always a guaranteed higher
Yeah.
income, right? And this is where we come and say, put it on long term.
Yeah.
So there's definitely higher income potential in many areas in Dubai. It's very flexible. So in case you want to sell your property, you don't need to give a 12-month notice to the tenant.
Okay.
You can easily break the contract with us or with any holiday homes in general, if we're talking generic.
Okay.
And just within 2 to 3 months, you take your property back and you can sell it. And it also helps with viewings, right? So if you're trying to sell your property, it's very easy for you to send the agent or yourself to go and show the property to the potential buyer. And then the last point is obviously the demand. There is a tourist demand in the market, but also during high season, you can benefit from staying in the unit yourself.
Okay.
So instead of booking a hotel, you can stay in your property.
I think that's quite an interesting point there, which is again unique to Dubai. So for those unfamiliar, in Dubai, if you give a 12-month contract to a tenant, they basically have the right to renew that. And you can't just terminate that contract. You either need to say, listen, I'm selling it or I'm moving in myself. Okay. And you give them a legal notice. And they have 12 months from that legal notice. So if you think, oh, listen, I'll sell my property in 6 months and I've got a tenant in there, I have to I'm not going to be able to sell it to an end user because that end user knows they're waiting 6 months or they're going to be waiting a year basically when they give the notice after the transaction's completed. So this is a bind a lot of people get into in Dubai because they rent it out long term and then they have to think, when am I going to sell it? And they start having to tell the tenants and they get into issues with tenants and legal cases. So not to support your view because I'm on the long term, but that is a problem that happens in Dubai. We faced it, and that's why sometimes what we like to do is if we've got long term, but we know we're going to sell it in say 6 months, because we've funded over 150 properties, right? We know we're going to sell it in 6 months, then we'll switch it to short term for a period of time, so it makes it easier to sell. Because again, if you have a long-term tenant, you don't have the right to just turn up there and do viewings. That also causes an issue. So because sometimes people want to do 2 or 3 viewings and the tenant's not cooperative, right? So let me give you what I think of the cons of, the cons of short term, right? So you have a lot of turnover costs, right? So there might be a cost associated with, we're in summer, it's hot now, my unit might be empty for 3 weeks, right? So no one's coming, maybe not someone's not coming to Dubai. So there's that inherent risk, especially in summer where it's vacant. In winter, you're not getting a room, like it's fully booked, right? Summer, there's that vacancy risk. I think also it's management intensive. So we used to try and do it ourselves, check-ins, check-outs, Airbnb, checking the price, etc. It's a lot of hassle, right? So from a hassle perspective, there's a lot. The last one is, like you mentioned at the beginning, you have this regulatory challenge. Okay, so you have to log every client, every visitor with the DTC, blah, blah, blah. You go through all of these, you have to take a fee. So it just seems like a lot of hassle to do short term. There's a lot of hassle. And there's risk if it's left empty for a while.
Yeah, you're right. I'll pick the last word you said, it's risky. So first of all, I always say that if you want to list your property on short term, you need to know you're taking a risk, right? Because again, with long term, you're guaranteed. But that's what we're here for. That's why with my team and with the experience we come with, that's why we're here to help. So, you're right about the turnover cost. Yes, the property may be vacant, but what we've done at least this year, right? And we've just launched a couple of months ago, but what we've done in summer, we've been doing so far. Number one is we dropped our management fees for 3 months, right? Because we wanted to tell landlords, first of all, we have the lowest fees in the market, right? One of the lowest, 15% management fees in the market. But what we've done in order to make sure we keep landlords making a steady income in summer, we've completely dropped our fees June, July, and August, right? So that helped or has been helping landlords. And the second point is our strategy is very aggressive with monthly bookings in summer. So with all the monthly platforms and our direct bookings as well, between May and September, we tend to take lots of monthly bookings, right? Because we want to secure the summer. Because like you said, winter, it's about optimizing and making more money, right? And yes, it is management incentive. Again, that's why we're here for. And when it comes to regulations and challenges around that, you know, we're 100% compliant. I'm happy to tell everyone. Every single unit has a permit. Every single unit has all the requirements that the government asks us to do. And every single person who checks in any holiday homes property is actually checked in on the portal as well with the government. So we're compliant, and at any point in time, government has access to every details.
So definitely on the hassle fee, for like, for example, when I hand over a unit to you, I don't have to do anything, right? You're managing that, and that's why you get a fee, right? And we appreciate the discount over the summer because it's helped boost our returns. I guess here, for me, it's just to pick up on the point, right? And again, why we've gone with HAVN. You do hear horror stories, right? Holiday home companies that are non-compliant, there's fines, they pass those fines on to their landlords, or they're not taking bookings properly, etc. So again, just kind of my warning to those who maybe have their own property is pick a provider that you're comfortable with, that is trusted, has a good reputation, because there's a lot of people out there that saying they're holiday home companies and they don't do things strictly by the book, and you can get in a lot of trouble with that. So if we're looking at that now, we've kind of discussed the short-term, long-term benefits and the cost. Do you want to just go over any issues on long-term, or you done on that?
I think we've said enough.
Okay, so I think here for me, I'll just, again, not to just shamelessly promote SmartCrowd, right? But I think in general, when you're doing investments, you need to diversify. You need to have a balanced portfolio, right? That's the key thing, a balanced portfolio. So what we do is we list the unit, it's a holiday home or it's a long-term rental, and investors can basically pick, okay, I'm going to put a couple of percent in there, a couple of percent in there, a few tens of thousands in there, 100,000 dirhams in there, and they balance their portfolio, right? They make sure that they've got a foot in both camps and they get the benefit. And then they see their incomes potentially rise in winter and then go down to a steady amount in summer, depending on how much holiday homes they have. So the thing I would always advise people, I'm not even saying go with SmartCrowd, I'm not even saying go with HAVN, is build a balanced portfolio between short-term and long-term. Pick your units very carefully. Not every unit is meant for long-term. Not every unit is meant for short-term. And that's why get advice, right? Get advice, look what's happening in the market, look at the data, right? Reach out to HAVN. I think this is a good plug to basically reveal what the HAVN goodie bag is for those listening. Do you want to take it over, Jimmy?
Exactly. So, you know, we've just talked about that a couple of minutes ago. And, you know, since we're left with 2 months, July and August, for the summer, we want to extend the 0% management fees for whoever joins HAVN anytime in the next 2 months. And yeah, we're happy to, you know, to also consult you. Any questions you have, we're going to be doing that. That's it.
Okay. So what do they have to do? They get 0% management fees.
They just need to contact us. Just send us an email on pm@havn.ae.
Okay.
And we'll get back to you within 24 hours.
Okay, great. I think this is time for me maybe to give a little SmartCrowd goodie, but let me just tell you guys again why SmartCrowd has an advantage, right? We're a fully digital, transparent platform. We're regulated. We're the first regulated platform in the Middle East for crowdfunding real estate, going since 2018. We've done over 150 properties. We've got a proven track record, which is over 26 exits, giving great returns, market-beating returns, and we have the lowest fees in the market, guaranteed. So that's a little bit about SmartCrowd. If you guys want to, this is a little bit about our user base across the world, how many registered users we have, etc. If you guys want to invest with SmartCrowd, or if you're already a happy customer and you want a little goodie from me, use the promo code July17. It's on your screen. You'll get a 3% cash back. That is available from today until Sunday. So 3% cash back, July 17, from today until Sunday. Enjoy. Happy investing. So should we jump now into the bit of Q&A? So Laura, who again is off screen at the moment, is helpfully going through all your questions. She'll be amalgamating them and And she can just say them out loud, and then if you guys can't hear, I'll repeat them, and then me and Jimmy can discuss. And what time are we on, Laura? Okay, it's nearly 6:30. We went a little bit over. So 30 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll get you guys back to your cups of tea and back to your couches. Yeah, okay. Jimmy, why don't you take that? You must have low maintenance fees, maybe even in the flooding time.
Yeah.
Like what happens?
So, normally what we do is we try to keep, like you said, in winter season, we try to keep the maintenance reserves that we currently have in with HAVN. We keep them more in winter, and we try to minimize that in summer, right? Now, what we do from an operation perspective is we do have a dedicated person. So after every checkout, we've been sending that person to basically inspect the unit, following a certain SOP. So with that standard, we make sure that every amenity or every appliances in the apartment, they check the ceiling, they check literally everything.
It's preventative maintenance.
Preventative maintenance after every checkout, and this helps making sure we maintain the property very well.
So just for everyone at home, I'm not sure if you heard Laura, the question was, how do you make sure to keep maintenance costs low, right? And that's the question that we were just answering. What do we have next, Laura? When is SmartCrowd expanding in the Saudi market? That's a good question. I guess I'll take that one. So we have a license in Saudi Arabia. We're the first UAE platform to have that license. Saudi Arabia is very different to UAE. The license is very different. It's not individual units. And so we're planning our steps very, very carefully. Even before we launched in the UAE, again, as I mentioned, we're the first people to have this license. Actually, the license was created around SmartCrowd, created around the founder's vision, but we didn't launch for over a year because you have to make sure you have every step planned, because at the end of the day, investors are first. We have to protect investors' money. We've never lost investors' money. Never in 150 properties have we lost investors' money. From our 26 exits, we've made, on average, over a 3-year holding period, over 45% return on investment, right? That's just market being. So we are looking at Saudi. It's not something imminent. We're not going there today, but we'll keep you updated. Okay, so the question was around house prices in Dubai, because you obviously, basic economics, demand and supply. So there is a large amount of demand for properties, but there's a large amount of supply coming on, right? So in general, what we've seen, 2014, Dubai was kind of not growing as fast. You saw rent. I moved here 2015 from the UK, and prices started going down. Then you had COVID. Then now you see prices shooting up, right? Absolutely shooting up. House prices are going up. They're one of the highest they've ever been. We have more supply coming on. You have more and more supply coming on. What do you think, Jimmy?
Look, from a holiday homes perspective, I think that's going to only help the market, right?
Yeah.
And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we with an increase in number of tourists and expats, you need apartments, right?
Yeah.
Whether on short term or long term, you will need those apartments. And you look around, like I'm sure in our buildings as well, my entire building is full, right? And wherever you go, you ask around, it's very difficult to find apartments. So I think, and also from a holiday homes perspective, you look at the data 2018, there were only 800 listed holiday homes unit, but now we're looking at more than 25,000.
Wow.
So the increase again in supply is only being helpful.
I think just to reel back to our last webinar with Reading, the data analytics firm, where we had a look at this, right? And you are going through a period where the demand is going so high. So many people are moving to Dubai. I think we're expecting another 4,000 millionaires to move to Dubai. So this is really driving up prices, right? A lot of people are struggling to find accommodation, but you do have the supply coming on. Now, what the data is telling us, I don't have a crystal ball. What the data is telling us that the supply is going to keep coming to meet the demand. But the demand is still going to outstrip the supply.
Sure.
So the supply is coming on. It's coming on a record speeds. You have to be careful sometimes with the supply coming on. That's all I'm going to say about off-plan, because they're rushing to get this stuff done so they can get on to the next project. So you've got to make sure you're checking, knocking on the walls, checking that supply. But the supply still can't meet the demand. I don't know 3-4 years down the line, but but the estimations are house prices are going to keep going up in the next few years.
Yeah.
So we estimate somewhere between 5%, 7%. But as the director from Reading was saying in our last webinar, they estimated less than 20% last year, and it went up higher, right? So no one has a crystal ball, but for the short term, we're seeing that the prices are going to keep going up.
Yeah.
What do we have next, Lara? Sure. So question is short-term rental considered Airbnb? So Jimmy, why don't you tell us, is it Airbnb? Is it booking? What is it exactly?
So Airbnb is part of the short-term rental strategy, right? If you put it this way. But short-term rental is anything below, I would say, 1 month, right?
Okay.
It's considered short-term, unless you do monthly booking.
Sure.
For like 6 months, but then you keep the unit rolling, like the booking rolling for 6 months, and that's a different topic. But anything below 1 month normally is considered short-term. Now, Airbnb is a platform that we use as HAVN or any other holiday homes in Dubai. We use to advertise our properties, right? So Airbnb is there, and it's something actually we use. It's a very good question because we are on Airbnb as a platform.
Sure.
We are on Booking.com.
Yep.
We are on Verbo, and we're currently connecting with HomeLight, which is a monthly dynamic online platform. So people can start booking our properties for 1 month online without the need to do any viewings, right? So it is part of the short term.
Yeah. So I think this is key, right? Because when you go with a holiday home provider, again, I'm not saying you have to go with HAVN. We chose to go with a holiday home provider, ask them what their strategy is, because we found some where they only list on Airbnb and therefore they only get people looking from Airbnb versus you guys that spread it across and then manage it with your internal processes to make sure you're getting the right bookings for the right prices. And then the other thing I will say as an advice to everyone is discuss the dynamic pricing of your units, because the person that's running your unit on your behalf, they need to know when they need to reduce the prices or increase the prices. They need to look at market trends, not monthly, weekly, daily, how prices are moving. If they just reduce by 10%, are they going to get a booking for 4 weeks, or is it going to be empty if they don't do it, right? So I think that's key for people at home. Whoever you're using, make sure you understand what platforms they're on, Airbnb, Booking.com, etc., and how they look at pricing, or are they lazy with pricing? I think these are the 2 keys for any holiday home company.
Riz, we're very also, like I said, we're very transparent at the beginning of our meeting today, and we're happy to share also the pricing for the next 12 months with any landlord that signs up with us, because we do set up the pricing for the next 12 months, right? We take into consideration the high season, New Year's.
So you give, I mean, I've seen it, you give a month by month breakdown of what you expect every single month, right?
And we go with really a revenue optimization. So at the moment, if you try to book any of our properties December and January, you cannot check in or check out from 29th till 2nd.
Okay. So you're locking in that whole period.
Exactly, because this is, for me, this is the right time to generate the highest possible returns, right? Between, I would say, 15th of October till 15th of March, we have to really.
That's peak season. That's peak season.
If you don't make it, you're done for the next 6 months.
Okay, sure. Sounds good. What do we have next, Lara?
Higher yielding apartments these days of around 8%.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a fact, right? So so our question is, is it harder to find higher yielding properties that are delivering 8, 9%, etc., right? So I think, again, you've got to look at what the key thing is. What's the price that you're buying at? The 2 components of yield is the price you're buying at and the rental income that you're getting, right? So rental income, whether it's a holiday home or whether it's long term, that is going to determine what the rental income is. Then the other thing is the price that you're buying at. What we've seen is the market is maturing. So a lot of the units we did were, for example, during COVID, where you bought at a really good price, and then we had yields of 9, 10, even 11% yields, right? As again, the price is going up. But now, what is the market average? I think market average is somewhere around 5.5, max 6% yield. If I'm honest, in the UAE, you can go to different pockets and potentially get a deal where it's a bit higher. We generally aim for a minimum of roughly at 6.5. We've done a little bit lower. We go up to 7.5. The last one we did with HAVN was actually gave a guaranteed yield of 7.5 to our investors, which was very kind. So that's the range we try to do now. That's because we're property experts. We'll look at 30 units, negotiate very hard, make sure we get the best deal, so we're getting the purchase price down. Then we'll make sure that we're doing the work and getting the highest yield. But definitely the market has changed. 8% is not normal in the market. Again, you've got to balance this a little bit, because my advice to you is, if someone says, look, I can get you 8%, you might be sacrificing the capital appreciation, right? So this is why we have on our platform anywhere between, for example, 6.36% all the way to 8%. You might end up, you see investors going into the 6% one.
Right.
Why? Because the capital appreciation story is better there. It's more likely when you sell the property, you're going to get a bigger overall return. Some people are more interested in the short-term yield. I want this monthly income.
Yeah.
I'm not that bothered about the capital appreciation. So these are the two things you've got to look out for: opportunity and the capital appreciation, and two, what is the yield? Now, when I say yield, again, ladies and gentlemen, be very careful. There's service charges in Dubai. Service charges are very high in Dubai. Okay, so if someone says, hey, it's a 9% yield, ask the question, is it before or after service charges?
Yeah.
That is key, because the service charge will knock you down probably 1.5% on your yield. So be very, very clear with whoever's selling you a property, whatever you're looking at the net yield. We're talking about net yields, ladies and gentlemen.
What do you do to enhance guest experience and ensure that my property gets good reviews on the online platform?
Okay, so Laura's question was, what do you do to improve the guest experience? We talked about coming from the hospitality sector, right? Guest experience. And then how do you make sure that the reviews are good? I know when I'm booking an Airbnb or booking whatever, I'm looking at how many stars is it out of 5, right? If I'm doing on booking.com, I'm looking for a hotel. What is it out of 10, right? So what do you do for the customer experience?
Yeah.
And also, how do you make sure that you're a super host, right? You're a super host on Airbnb and the other platforms. How do you make sure that the units are getting that?
So number one is the team, right? So again, I'll keep emphasizing on the team we have. They're very strong. They come with hotels experience, which makes guest services and guest relations number one, right? In their mind, number one focus. So the experience starts from the inquiry, not even from the booking, right?
Okay.
Because some people inquire with us on Airbnb, and it starts right from the beginning. When someone inquires, this is when we start being very friendly with them, right? So we have a very friendly approach. We use lots of emojis, so we keep the conversation quite extremely friendly with
casual,
guests, right? Very casual. We never use dear. We're very hi, hello. So we're very friendly with guests, because that's how it should be. And then so we have lots of checkpoints before check-in, 5 days before check-in, 2 days before check-in. We do lots of automated messages to make sure guests, they're aware, right? Sure. For instance, they have the building name, the location, everything way in advance before check-in, right? And then we keep constant relationship and communication with them up until the point of check-in. Now, what we've been trying to do is check-ins, physical check-ins, right? The guarantee thing we do is guaranteed checkout 100%. So someone needs to be there upon checkout, because we inspect the unit, as well as check-in. So what happens in between is up to us, right? So because I come from a hotels experience, it's fine for me. So if my team calls me at midnight saying we have an issue in one of the apartments, I don't panic, because you get used to it, right? With experience in hotels, this is very normal. But it's all about how you respond to that complaint, right? It's all about what you do to make the guests feel okay. So I'm fine when we get complaints, if they're small complaints, of course. But we need to make sure, we tackle the issues proactive, very much. So, this is briefly about the service, right? And we do offer services. We've been working actually on a very interesting platform with a partner in UAE, which hopefully we'll be launching in the next 2 weeks. But this helps the service. And although we're 4.7 on Airbnb now, we want 4.8, we want 4.9. So we've been looking at every area to improve. And that partner is going to give us access to online groceries, online restaurants, pharmacies, flowers, cakes.
So it's not just accommodation, it's basically your whole experience is managed by HAVN.
100%. And any requests we get offline, we do it ourselves. So I'll give you an example. I had one of my team members buying a cake last week, because one of the guest wife it was her birthday, right? So she went there at 12 midnight just to make sure it's delivered on time, etc. So these small things, maybe they're small, but they make big difference, right? And that's how we enjoy service. We love giving good service,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we're here for.
Okay, excellent.
Substantial profitability of short-term rentals.
Okay, so what factors do we consider when determining the profitability of a short and long-term unit? So again, we've got a lot of experience, right, in terms of looking at the data, looking at the markets. Years ago, we made mistakes sometimes with holiday homes because long-term is pretty simple. We know what we're getting. Holiday homes, it depends on the provider. It depends on the quote we're getting, what they deliver. So really for us, it's the long-term is just data-driven. What we think we can get for the unit, we check Property Finder, we check multiple others, we check with brokers, we make sure we've got a good partner that fills the units, etc. And we look at the tenant as well. So the profitability is not just in the revenue you're getting, it's the quality of the tenant, because are they going to pay on time? Are they going to renew, etc., etc. So this is key. On the short term, for me, I sit down with Jimmy, my team sit down with Jimmy's team, and they go through the unit and they go through what the economics will look like. And I think generally when I'm looking at a unit, we always show you and you give us a quote. And a lot of the time, sometimes you come back and the quote is below what we get in long term. I've never had a situation where you've given me a quote that's higher than long term. We've gone with you and then said this was a mistake. So we're getting that honest feedback, and hence we generally have about a third of our units as short term. So a lot of the time, again, on the profitability, it depends what's the location, what are things going around it, and also what's going around it in the next year. So as I give you an example, we take a unit, but we know something is going to be built here next year. I might not want a long-term tenant in that this year. That's then hard to get out next year, right? Because again, I can only get them out if I'm selling the unit or I'm moving in myself.
Right.
So I can't just say I'm doing a short-term rental. So I might put it on short-term rental for a while to get the higher revenue later on when this new development kicks off. Again, the buy something new is being done every single month, right?
Yeah.
So that's anything to add there, Jimmy?
Yeah, the first point you talked about honesty. So we've been outside of SmartCrowd, direct landlords, we've been getting lots of rejections when we give our quotations, right? And our proposals, because landlords tend to tell us, well, XYZ holiday homes have given me 20-30% more than what you propose, right? And we've had cases before with SmartCrowd, and I'm fine. And I always tell the landlords, I'm not gonna increase the numbers just to please you and make sure you sign with me, right? Because I'm giving you exactly what I'm confident my team and I can deliver. So, yeah, and another point, which also you picked up, is sometimes you have a famous tower, let's say, but tower next door is not famous, and sometimes it's due to the amount of holiday homes you have in that tower, right?
Okay.
You drive the algorithm on Airbnb. So there are lots of factors that we take into consideration when we, give you a feedback and give you a proposal for a holiday home unit.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how long it takes to find a new tenant for a long term.
Okay, so the first question is on occupancy rates on long term and short term. And then the second part B of that question was basically how long does it take to get a tenant? Okay, so occupancy rates, do you want to go short term?
Yeah, I'll talk about short term. And so basically occupancy rate in Dubai, in the hospitality, in hotels, basically hotel apartments and holiday homes tend to be pretty much the same, right? So it goes really the deep is probably July and August are the lowest 2 months, right? So now what we're going through is quite difficult from an occupancy perspective, and then it goes up all the way to 95 and 96% in high season, right? The peak is normally, like we spoke, November, December, Jan, their peak, right? So you tend to close more than 90%. You should actually have any holiday homes that's currently managing your properties, if there are properties now being managed, should not close below 90%.
Okay.
But what's more important is what rate are they closing it at, right?
Okay, yes.
Occupancy percentage is a great topic. We can discuss about that, for hours.
Yeah.
But it all depends on the rate that you're currently.
You'd rather take, instead of taking $100 a night, 100% occupancy rate.
Exactly.
Would you rather take $150 per night and get an 80% occupancy rate?
Let me give you an example. We now have a case at a very, very beautiful property in JVC, Jumeirah Village Circle, a studio which can go for like 50,000 a year on long term, right? And the average rate in JVC is around 300 to 350 dirhams a night, right? Okay. That's the average. But then I got a tenant who was willing to pay 270 dirhams, but for 7 months.
Okay.
Right? So here's where I put my calculation and I say, okay, fine, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, even if I have to go below the average rate, but I'm securing
the long term,
a very interesting return to the landlord. And And every time we have a situation like that, we don't take a decision before we speak to the landlord,
Okay.
right?
Especially long term like
Yes,
that, right?
of
Okay,
course.
fine. So I think on long-term rentals, you're basically, once you get a tenant in, generally you're keeping them for a year. It's usual in Dubai to have a 12-month contract. And generally, again, especially when rates are increasing. So again, Dubai has a unique characteristic. It doesn't have a strict rent control, like this is what you must charge. Once you agree with a tenant, a price, then the following year there is an automatic renewal and there's an upper limit on how much you can increase the price. Sometimes it's, for example, 5%. So the market might have increased by 20% and you can only increase the price by 5% and you're stuck. And that's where you get into a bit of a mess with trying to get the tenant out because you want to get more, the tenant fights back, etc., etc. So you can see high occupancy rates, especially in a market where the rents are increasing because the tenant doesn't want to leave. They know if they leave, they'll have to get a more expensive unit somewhere else. So I think that's the first thing. So long term is when you got a tenant, generally they're staying, right? Now sourcing the tenant, sourcing the right tenant. Sometimes tenants do abscond, right? This again, 90% of people aren't from the UAE. They can pick up their bags and leave. We had an example last year where a tenant literally just left. Their check didn't clear the next week. While we were chasing that tenant, we actually managed to find someone who was willing to pay 20% more and moved in straight away. So the investors got a better return, and we chased that old tenant, and we managed to get that check at least paid. We went through a whole legal process with that. So the hassle side of things, you want to give it to someone else. I'm not saying give it to SmartCrowd necessarily, but we do manage those for other tenants as well, other landlords, sorry. So that's key. Now, how long does a unit stay empty? It depends what price you're trying to get. Sometimes you're going for an aggressive price, it might take you 1-2 months for a tenant. You might go for a reasonable price. And given the market dynamics now, if you're going for a reasonable price, you'll generally get a tenant, right? So occupancies are high at the moment. It's easier to get a tenant because of where the market is. If more supply comes on, again, you need to think about lots of different factors in terms of that, but you don't have the same potential issues that you do with short term. I think, what time are we on, Laura? 9 minutes. Okay, guys. Probably not bored of us, but we promise we'll get you out on the hour. Yeah, so we'll be launching Abu Dhabi soon. That's something that's going to come up very, very soon. We're just, again, finding the right properties in the right locations. We don't want to just launch a Abu Dhabi property and say, hey, great, and everyone goes, oh, wow, Abu Dhabi. Each unit is different. Each building is different. Each area is different. We have to look at the long-term dynamics of Abu Dhabi. Very different to Dubai, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Dubai is a tourist hub. Abu Dhabi is the capital of Dubai. There's a lot of money going around. Again, you might be thinking more long-term in Abu Dhabi than holiday home. That's what we're looking at the moment. But we're trying to lock in the right property with the right yield and also the right capital appreciation. You might see generally the yields are a bit lower than Dubai, right? But the capital appreciation potentially is higher. So that's what we're trying to find out. But yeah, stay tuned. We will be launching in Abu Dhabi. Other Emirates, we're not looking at the moment. There's obviously a lot of buzz around Ras Al Khaimah because of the talk about the casino coming. But a lot of the existing stock, which is where SmartCrowd deals in, is not of the quality we want. And a lot of the new stock coming on, we don't do off-plan at the moment. So off-plan, we're not going to be there, but there will be stock. There will be opportunities in Ras Al Khaimah. So in the next year or so, don't be surprised if we're also offering Ras Al Khaimah, probably again, more holiday homes, right? You're going to get a lot of people visiting the casino. Yeah. So that's probably looking more holiday home. Okay, so the question there is to Jimmy, how do you benchmark against competitors? How do you know you're doing better than your competitors? And then what was the second part of the question, Lara? That's basically, yeah. How do you, there's a lot of short term, there's a lot of units. I mean, even when we were going through our tendering process last year, before we ended up going with HAVN, we saw so many people. And when you ask a few basic questions, you realize people saw the attractiveness of Dubai's holiday home market. So you had people moving here and setting up holiday home companies, and they had no idea the difference between JVC and JVT, right? Jumeirah Village Circle and Jumeirah Village Triangle. You know, surprise, surprise, one is in the shape of a circle, one is in the shape of a triangle. But yeah, how do you make sure that, how do you know even what the competition is offering?
So we have a very important and interesting tool that we use. It's called Price Labs, and Price Labs is becoming famous in UAE now. Okay. This gives me access to every single competitor around me. We get all our reports and data from Price Lab directly. But also doesn't mean we just rely on that, right? So we have our ways. Sometimes I go as deep and detailed as going to Airbnb, and zooming in on a certain area where I have a unit and see what others are doing around me, because it takes it. I'm a big fan of going back to basics in some areas, and this is one of them. And I personally actually manage the pricing. I don't have a team member who does pricing, so it's me. And I spend almost, I would say, on average, 3 to 4 times a day, I go and I check the platform and I see if I need to increase or decrease the pricing, right? Although my pricing system is dynamic, so it goes up and down based on the occupancy. And this is something we've invested in. So if I manage your property on short term and I get a unit for 15 nights in October, my other 15 nights price is going to automatically increase, right? Because I'm yielding now and I'm trying to optimizing more and more. But still, regardless, I still go at least 3 times a day and I check every single property we have on our platform, all the 51 properties we manage now, literally 3 times a day, and then we go one by one. So we have tools, but at the same time, we still rely on.
I guess you're using your hotel experience, right?
Exactly.
Like that's what hotels do, right? They see the prices changing dynamically. And I guess when you're speaking to landlords, I remember you telling me last week when we had a coffee that you're getting priced out where some landlords are getting quotes from other holiday home companies 20-30% more, and you're like, okay, take it, and then you'll come back to me in a couple of months when they won't be able to deliver that, right? So I guess you get a live feed from landlords that you're talking to, right? What the competitors are offering.
100%. I'd rather have 50 happy landlords than 200 and half of them are unhappy.
True. True. Laura? Yes, good question. So any plan for commercial properties is the question. Yes, we will be launching, God willing, commercial properties in the not too distant future. There's lots coming from SmartCrowd.
Sales revenues.
Yeah, so around AI. So I think just to highlight to people at home, so we actually have already started implementing AI in our sourcing models to figure out where to buy properties, right? Which towers, what's doing well, how's it trending, what's the data looking like? So we're using AI at the moment, and our chief technology officer is actually a specialist in AI. So we're using that. And in terms of, do you use any AI at the moment? I mean, it's coming.
Yeah, well, right? It's a bit tricky with holiday homes because I'm trying to keep that human touch with guests, right? So I don't want to keep a bot talking to a guest online.
But do you figure out how to maximize the revenue using
100%. So again, that's what Price Lab is all about, right? It's a platform that artificially it's very intelligent and gives you an update on the competition, etc. So from a pricing perspective, yes, this helped me boost my sales. But from a guest relations perspective, keep it. Keep it.
So your team are actually a real team applying to guests. It's not a bot. It's not a chat bot.
100%.
So we're again very opportunistic. We do have strategies in terms of sales, exits, etc. What we do in general, we just keep an eye on the market. We've got teams in the market all the time. Again, just like Jimmy's kind of doing, we're looking at what's selling in which area. And the way our model works is we analyze prices, and then when we think there's an opportunity to get a good return for investors, we get a soft offer from a buyer, and then we send it for a vote. So we're a very democratic organization. Not only are we democratizing access to real estate, is we put the decisions in your hands. So generally, we send a vote. We say, this is the price that we've got. Do you want to sell or do you want to hold? And sometimes even if we want to switch between long-term and short-term, we'll also send that for a vote. So we follow what our investors tell us. They expect us to give them good advice. So we have the sales strategy, but it's a daily strategy of checking prices across all our units, over 100 units. So there's a lot of work, but that's what we owe it to our investors. That's why you won't find anyone in the market with lower fees than us, right? That's easy. You can just see, right? Hidden fees, etc. Again, I tell people, go read the fine print. I've heard in the past someone says, oh, these guys have lower fees than you. And go read the fine print, right? Read the performance fees at the end. Read X, Y, and Z, what the percentages are calculated at, etc. So if I say my fee is 1.5% upfront, on what price is that? Is the purchase price or the total price, including the fees, DLD fees, etc. Right? It might sound the same, but it's different. But no, so the fees is very easy to see. Even if they're hidden, you can find it out. The track record we have, which no one in the market has, nowhere even close, is we've done over 26 exits. In the next couple of months, we'll run 30 exits altogether, and the returns speak for themselves. We make great returns for investors. Again, investors have voted on these returns, and we have a very, very high reinvestment rate because people are happy with us. And when you're making that decision to reinvest with us, you're not necessarily making a long-term decision, because we have the share transfer facility where every 6 months you can trade your shares in the market between buyers and sellers. It's basically a marketplace. So that's basically our sales strategy, is just make sure ear to the ground, speaking to brokers, speaking to buyers, seeing what price we can get, and putting the power back in your hands to make that decision. Do you want to buy? Do you want to sell, or do you want to hold? And I think that's it. We're done. Great. So thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah, sure.
I think we got through all the questions. Really appreciate the time. We'll make the recording available. If you have any questions or you want to avail the promo from HAVN, PM@HAVN, HAVN.ae. Just email Jimmy. And Jimmy, are you giving us a referral fee? and you can use the promo code July 17 until Sunday to get 3% cash back on any of our live properties on SmartCrowd, SmartCrowd.ae. Please visit us. We've got thousands of happy investors. Please join us. Thank you so much.